where the world is. We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep. But now everybody knows. Got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep going. What you want to be going, you will see.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be going, you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony. Ooh.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and it printed out $100. Put a quarter in it, printed out $100. Would you ever stop that machine from running?
But now everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
We know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? I feel like I'm low. No?
I can hear you.
Okay. Tonight we're talking about IRAs, specifically the biggest mistakes that people make. Did you know that a single mistake in your IRA could derail your entire retirement plan? Well, you will after this stream. Tonight we're going to deep dive into the top IRA mistakes that could ruin your retirement and, more importantly, how you can avoid them. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Some of this stuff might actually shock you because most people don't really even know well, maybe we won't ruin it, right?
Well, we might.
Should we not ruin it?
No, don't ruin it. So here's the thing. Well, first, let me start here. And it sounds like we have a doorbell. Let me start here. I'm Donnell, and this is my lovely wife, Angelina.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah, why
I'm
do
saying-
people not think that we're married? That's strange to me. If you guys
don't
could
know.
tell us, like, why people just assume that we are not married, but they do. They ask all the time, like, "Oh, is that your partner on the live stream?" Or they ask if who am I, right?
Right. I mean, bro, if I was out here calling my work hard or my counterpart or someone that I hired sweetheart, like I think that would be a problem.
Yeah.
And I refer to you as sweetheart a lot.
You do. And so, yeah, Piki was saying that. He was saying, like, when I first started watching you guys, I was like, wow, that's kind of weird that he calls her sweetheart, but, whatever.
My homie.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, like
Weird.
this lady that we work with and sweetheart, like that's how condescending is that?
Like, where's HR?
Yeah, like
Get HR over here
you
right
talk
now.
to your wife like that? Is that how you would want someone to talk to your wife?
I don't know. It's weird.
Okay,
yeah,
I don't know who was at the door, but you know what, y'all, we have signage, multiple signs at the door that's like, beat it. You don't want none. Okay, I
Right.
promise you, go away. And this is why, because they'll just sit there and then the dog gets all involved. And now this is real life. We're live. And now they're gone. They
So-
read the sign.
And as for today, the main objective for today was just kind of talk through a lot of the conversations that I'm having. And that is, these mistakes that we're going to walk through today. I receive a fair amount of calls that actually hit every one of these points at some point in the conversation. So hopefully there's an opportunity for you to learn something, maybe connect some dots that maybe you didn't know, and also kind of identify where the onus is on like why things are structured the way they are. Like goes back to who benefits. And so hopefully that's some of the things that we kind of addressed tonight. This should be a fairly, I'll call it simple live. So please gather your questions if you have any, whether it's related to this or anything else. Be happy to address them. But this is a pretty straightforward live tonight. And again, I just want to make sure the objective, at least for tonight, is to identify or kind of lay out some of the consistent themes around mistakes being made within IRAs and impacting your ability to maybe invest in what you want or do some of the things that you've been wanting to do. So.
Okay, first off, if you think you have the answers to the test, please put them in the chat because I would love to know. Charles is over here trying to cheat. He wants to, I got the answers. Pick me. I know all the answers to this test. Charles, this one's not on there. This,
Yeah, the 5-year rule.
yeah, this could be, but it's not on there.
And the part about insane, I think you have to look at it from the who benefits perspective. Like even
Yeah,
this what Charles is specifically speaking about is you have to have your Roth account in place for 5 years before the funds in it actually become tax free. And you have to look at it from the perspective of who benefits. If all of a sudden tomorrow the dollar you put in became tax free, that means the government can't make any money. They need to give you
right.
that 5-year period to hang yourself, that 5-year period to hopefully put them in a position to where they can catch you doing something wrong so they can benefit from it. So, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is it really boils down to who benefits. So I think this is a prime example of kind of where we're headed tonight.
Yeah, this isn't the normal IRA conversation. I will tell you that. So we're gonna get into it. People are like, could you just start the conversation then already?
But they
Talking
say
about
that all the
everything.
time about us. Like, can you just get like we'll get comments like, I was 15 minutes in before you started the example. Some of those I apologize, but some of it just is what it is.
Yeah, if you're watching the replays, I think at this point they just know like skip forward till they
Right.
see the vibe board come on. Okay. Anywho, Charles, this one could be on there, but it's not. And that's what's going to make this so interesting is we're really kind of going to flip the IRA around and look at it from a different perspective tonight. Are you ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Husband? Just kidding.
Right.
I don't know. Should we just start saying that? Just
That's what
randomly?
it is. I'll stop calling you sweetheart and I'll start calling you wife. Hey,
Okay.
wife.
Yeah,
Send me
maybe
over to
people.
the vibe board.
Could you imagine how many people probably heard that and assumed, and then they were like, "I am not subscribing to this channel. I'm
Right,
not going to
right.
stick around." He
That's
speaks to
cringy.
this lady like this. Like, what would her husband think of him calling her this? Are you kidding me? All right, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
Oh, let's hide that. Here we go. Here we go.
So again, the idea behind today is to kind of talk through how and why you might be ruining your IRA. These are very simple. These are logical things that we're going to talk through, but just maybe things that maybe weren't fully connected from a perspective of what do I need to do to make sure I'm not doing these things. And this is just a small, I'll call it snippet of a lot of the questions I receive, comments I receive, or just concerns around, hey, I've got this IRA, what if? How is this? What does this mean? And so the idea behind this is to kind of just identify what are those top issues that we've been running to when people reach out to me as it relates to an IRA or even a self-directed IRA. And the first one is really simple. A lot of people don't even understand the vehicle that they have. Meaning an IRA is an individual retirement account. Like, what does that even mean? Well, it's basically, at least from my perspective, it's just a glorified savings account. And I don't know that you will hear many people call it that because a lot of people view the IRA, specifically the Roth IRA, as this great and wonderful vehicle to help you accomplish your goals. Like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I don't view it that way. To me, an IRA is just that, an individual retirement account, a glorified savings account. And banks love them. Banks, custodians, financial institutions love IRAs. Why do they love IRAs? We're going to answer that later on throughout this thing. But again, most people don't understand what it is they have, and to kind of, I think, better kind of walk through why we are where we are is kind of have to understand where it started. And you have to think back to, you have to really think back to, I'll call it around the Great Depression or coming out of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Coming out of the Great Depression, what was happening was the country was finally thriving again. People were having a lot of babies, and hence the baby boomer section that ended up occurring. And what ends up happening here is with all of these people coming into the workforce, the government, or not necessarily the government, companies are really struggling to be able to support this large influx of labor. And so to shift some of the responsibility from the company and or the government, the idea was, hey, what are these vehicles we can put in place to help shift some of this burden from both the government concerns and also the companies who are having trouble keeping all of these people employed. And sweetheart, I know there's some things you probably want to highlight on this slide as well. But the idea was coming out of the baby boom, coming out of World War II. What ended up happening was there was a supplemental piece that ended up being added.
Okay, I'll come over here with you. So inside of this time frame was where the American dream was kind of like installed or into our
Embedded.
society. Yeah, right. So the idea was that there's a lot of people who were having to be taken care of by the government when they got to a certain age, or they just weren't. They had no way of taking care of themselves. The system really wasn't established at that time. So this is like the 30s, and we're going to go through, show you what the timeline actually looked like. But well before the IRA came to play, there was already like a solid 40 years of them trying to figure out what to do, essentially, right? Trying to find solutions for people, not just for the people, but also for the government, for the economy, just in general, right? So all these babies, they start saying, well, we got to have babies. We got to have more workers, right? We got to, in order to put a surge into the economy, so we got to have more workers. So let's incentivize people to have like the 2.5 kids, whatever it was, right? The 1950s, the tract homes, you could buy like a whole block for like $10 back then. Remember that? Remember that, and a car. And so this is where the baby boomers were born, right? During this time period. When they started seeing how many kids were coming out, now these kids are going to enter in the workforce, which was the whole point, right? They have to figure out also how many of them might end up on government assistance or unable to take care of themselves, or what type of assistance that they will have. And then what will these corporations do, and how will they be incentivized for having, all of these new employees and people to employ. So there was like a big problem at this stage. Now, this is really important because if you're looking at the timeline just of our history in general, like where we are now and how the laws and just where we're going government-wise in terms of corporations and protections for people in terms of their own having control over their own future, right? And the government not having anything to do with it. This is really important because in the beginning it was sold as we're going to figure out a way where all these babies can be taken care of. And then it turned into we can't do pension plans anymore. The government supplements are not going to be adequate at all. We've already promised all of the silent generation and these baby boomers that they're going to have Social Security because we've already established that. So now we're just kind of in the whoops. Let them handle it. Let them take care of it. And in addition to that, this whole economy was booming, right? Like they're printing money at this point. They're printing factories. They're printing jobs. They're printing campuses too, right? So that there's money to be made and money being exchanged all over the place. The most important part of this of this particular stage is just the fact that how they marketed the IRA, or how it was coming out, how they were marketing it. Capitalism was like on the rise, like new fridge, new this, new that. Everybody's getting everything, right? You could have anything you wanted because this is the American dream. But the government's like, hey, well, what about us? How come everybody else is making money? You could buy a house and then you just pay interest for that house and the bank ends up getting more money. So what about us? And I think, in my view, this is how the government actually became a bank. But this is how they marketed it.
Right. And I think it's along the lines of it's not sustainable. This process was never sustainable. And so there had to be some other vehicle in place in order for us to be able to sustain this growth. But you're
Yeah.
absolutely correct. It is the government transitioning itself from a government of the people to a bank for the people.
Right. So this is how they got in on the deal. All these lenders were giving out mortgages, so you end up paying twice the amount for your home, even though it looked like a little bit, right? You're paying a lot over time, and they were like, "Oh, we can brand this the same way. That's fine," and they did, and people went and jumped in, feet first.
Right.
Okay.
And so, which also kind of walks us into problem number two, making an assumption as it relates to an IRA of who actually benefits. Meaning, what was the purpose? What was the point of having an IRA? And yes, it is true that you benefit as an American having an IRA, but there was also some other people who benefited. One, the idea behind the IRA was to supplement income in later years. And why is that? Well, it was because, hey, companies were going, you know what? We can't sustain being able to pay for these generations to come with this, with the path that we're headed on. So, is there a vehicle where we can actually place some of that responsibility elsewhere? And also, it's designed to reduce the dependence on government assistance. Not everyone had a great paying job. So, what do you do for the people who's not in the workforce? The government saw that as that means they're going to depend more on us for government assistance. The way we can assist these people in not having to depend on us is give them a vehicle that they can use their hard-earned income to be able to contribute to. And then also, obviously, reducing the taxable income up front, tax advantaged. It's ultimately a glorified savings account, but it's a tax advantage savings account, meaning allowing any earned income to be able to fund this product and allow you to then not have to worry about that tax burden today. But in the long run, obviously, again, the government becoming a bank, the government's asset is continuing to grow. And at some point, that asset is going to come due. And then the last piece is shifting the burden. We started out talking about this, and that is shifting the burden. When you think about who benefits, this was all about shifting the burden off the government so that you don't require the government assistance to be able to support you, shifting the burden off companies who can't sustain pensions onto you. Put some of that responsibility onto you as the average American to fund your own retirement.
Well, it wasn't just a responsibility, but also the risk.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you talked about the timeline. So this is I know this is pretty small, pretty
You
hard to read.
you can
But
you can you can
I
make it
am.
bigger.
I
Okay.
am. I know it's pretty hard to read, but the piece here that I just wanted to highlight up front is this has been going on for a while. The IRA was introduced here in 1975. And all of these years after that, they've been working to modify, improve, adjust the IRA so that can become a vehicle that is, I'll call it comparable to a pension or comparable to a company retirement account. It's again, place that burden where it belongs. And so, one of the interesting pieces about this is in 1975, the contribution limits for an IRA was about $1,500. And we'll get into contribution limits, but one of the interesting pieces for me is the distance between here and 2002. So from 75, let's call it 1970, 1974 is when IRAs were introduced. So from 1974 to 2004, we're talking 30 years. The contribution limit has gone from $1,500 up to 3,000. So basically, the contribution limit doubled between for the 30-year period that we were dealing with the IRA. And so again, through these periods, there were many different adjustments that was looking to be made. The Roth IRA actually was introduced here along with the 401k. And other than that, between this period and today, ultimately what happened since 1975 was the increase of contribution limits. So the movement from 1,500 up to today, we're at 7 to 8,000. But the moral of the story is this has been a subject of placing the responsibility or the onus on you as the average American ever since 1975. The main objective was to shift burden. The objective was not to assist you truly in retirement. It was to shift the burden from the government to you so that you have more ownership and onus on developing or creating or generating your own retirement income. I think the only other thing I would want to note here is In addition to Roth being introduced in 1997, again, this is also where the 401k was introduced. And then in 2006, right here in this space, is where Roth was then offered to go along with the 401k. So it started here for the IRA, and then Roth was introduced in 2006 for the 401k as well. Go ahead,
I
sweetheart.
I just want to point out that if no one knew this part, the self-directed IRA was from the very beginning. So there's not a time period when it was introduced. It was just always this way from the very beginning. Why did we never hear about it? How are they using it? That could be a whole nother live stream. But the point is that it was just it wasn't a new thing or something that was added afterwards.
And that kind of goes, I'll call it, towards the conversation we've been having over the last few weeks as it relates to retirement accounts in general. People want to bash IRAs and bash 401ks as though they're not good. And again, I'm not a fan of the IRA, but the key piece to remember is the IRA or the 401k, they aren't the problem. Meaning, to your point, you have always been able to invest in non-traditional investments with an IRA, meaning your IRA has always been able to buy real estate. The question is, why can't your IRA purchase real estate? It has nothing to do with the vehicle. It has a lot to do with who actually owns or created the rules within the vehicle, which also brings us to our third mistake, and that is contribution limits. I kind of hinted upon it as we were talking through the timeline, but contribution limits, to me, this is one of the sad pieces as it relates to IRA, because there's no reason why that $1,500 should only be $7,000 if you're under the age of 50 as of right now. There's no, I'll call it, logical reason for that to be the case, other than who benefits from that contribution limit being as low as it is. And in addition, if we're talking Roth, if you make a certain dollar amount, you can't even contribute that $7,000 today. So there hasn't been much movement made, but one of the largest mistakes made is not understanding what you can contribute. Because if you exceed that $7,000 that you're able to contribute at age 50, you can void all of the tax advantages of your account. So a lot of times people don't understand that this 7,000, even though you can have as many IRAs as you want, let's say you have 7 of them, you can have any earned income can fund an IRA. You can have 7 of them. But what you cannot do is contribute $7,000 in each of them. So across all of the IRAs you have, your maximum contribution limit, if you're under the age of 50, is $7,000, which means if you've got 7 IRAs, that's $1,000 for each IRA. So if you've got an IRA that you're wanting to do mutual fund stocks and bonds, if you've got an IRA that you're wanting to buy crypto, if you have an IRA that you're wanting to invest in real estate, you have to be.
You're giving away the answers.
But my point is, you have to be cognizant of the fact that that contribution limit is specific to, across that contribution limit is across the board, meaning across all of those IRAs, the maximum total is $7,000 a year, which is sad.
But you know the math that I wish we would have done, had time to do, was what is the percentage based on annual salary, average annual salary for these contribution limits back in 1981, for instance, right? 1,500 is a completely different number than 7,000 is today with average.
With salaries being taken into consideration. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can also flip that to inflation. Let's compare inflation in 1974 compared to inflation as of today.
It's not following inflation,
right?
Which is also where when people say they double down on why they have an IRA because their Uncle Charlie had an IRA or because their dad had an IRA or whatever the case is, they have an IRA because they think it's like a box to check. They just have one because this is the vehicle that this particular custodian, this particular company offered them. So they just assumed, well, I know what an IRA is. In my mind, it's a qualified retirement account. It's something that can be trusted. So yes, if that's what the vehicle that you guys use, then all right, I'm in. I can check that box. But the problem is, tell me the $7,000 or the $5,000 or the whatever $1,000, whichever year it was, tell me how that got anybody to retirement.
Right. And I think that's the one of those misconceptions as well, is all I got to do is
Right.
contribute to my IRA and I can magically become retired. When yeah, I get it. $5,000, $7,000 a year, $8,000 a year compounding over time, that's a significant dollar amount. But is it enough to be able to replace your income after that same 20 to 30-year period?
Yeah.
And if we, again, as a comparison, when we're talking about contribution limits just from 2014 to 2023, this is significant. Again, what else has happened during this time period? How has everything else increased in costs? How has the ability for you to be able to purchase a home changed just in this period compared to, hey, I'm supposed to be able to use a vehicle like this to be able to retire? Like the math just does not math.
But you know what does math is the fact that you can have an IRA and a 401k. And so therefore, some people use both so that they can have the tax advantages of both. But imagine if you were to total both of these numbers up, because this is the tax reduction that you were looking for out of your, to reduce your taxable income.
Right.
Now, you go 30 years later or 20 years later, what does this number become, and what's the amount of taxes that they get to collect then? I'm giving away answers to the test now. Okay, bye.
And so that also kind of brings us to mistake number 4, which is also not paying attention to who. Oh, let me make this a little bit smaller, bring it up. Not
Oh,
paying attention to who is actually holding your IRA.
I'll move you.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Okay.
Or woman
Wife.
or wife.
Woman.
Thank you, Angelique.
Woman.
I'm a little confused now.
Don't you call me Angelique. All right. Here we go.
So, mistake number 4 being not paying enough attention to where your IRA is actually sitting. Meaning, I have a lot of people who call saying, hey, I've got an IRA already. Why can't I do what you talked about? Well, it's not the issue that the IRA isn't capable, because the IRA is capable. The issue is where the IRA is sitting, what custodian it's sitting with. Is it sitting with Fidelity? If you're wanting to be able to use your IRA to invest in some non-traditional investment like real estate, will Fidelity allow you to do that? What would it take for Fidelity to allow you to do that? So, not being clear, not understanding who your IRA is with, and the impact of you wanting to take actions like this. What's the impact on your account? Meaning, what's that fee structure? So, not just the rules, what does it cost? Even if Fidelity would allow you to invest in real estate, what would they need for it to be, I'll call it a lucrative opportunity for you? Meaning, what would they need to charge you for this to make sense? And which is also why a lot of custodians do not participate in this space. Oh, and by the way, this implies that there are multiple or many types of IRAs. There's only two types of IRAs, right? A Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. That's what most people think, not realizing there are actually more IRAs than you think. And
How
this
many?
and this right here is just a small list of them. Meaning, we're showing, I think, 8, but in truth, there's actually more than this. So what are they? So there's the type of IRAs that you can only invest in mutual funds, stocks, and bonds. Those are the IRAs that are sitting with a Fidelity. Then there's the IRAs where, okay, you can invest in mutual funds, stocks, and bonds, but you can also do syndications. You can also do private placements. Well, those type of IRAs might be sitting with maybe an equity trust, meaning it's an IRA that you can invest in non-traditional investments, but you invest through the custodian, which means that you aren't actually taking the action, but you're investing through the custodian to take that action. They are the ones that are actually making the purchase in that non-traditional investment. Do any of you have I think it's a crypto IRA or a gold and silver IRA? And they're specifically named these. Well, what is it about a crypto IRA that's different from an IRA where I can invest in a syndication, or an IRA that I can invest in only mutual funds, stocks, and bonds? What's the difference? The issue is there is no difference. And then obviously there's the true 100% self-directed IRA, which allows you to invest in all of these. But what about a simple IRA? A simple IRA, and I can't remember when simple IRA starts. I know it's on on that timeline, but a simple IRA is just for small businesses. It's an IRA that maybe you have a small business with a few employees and you're wanting to be able to assist them in generating or building a retirement, and you don't want the structure that comes along with a 401k. So you can do an absolutely a simple IRA for business and also offer a match inside of that. But what about if you're self-employed? You're self-employed and you don't have any employees and you're looking for a vehicle. Well, what is the difference between all of these different vehicles? Oh, and don't forget about Roth. And now, how about that? Have you guys heard of the mega backdoor Roth? And again, a lot of people assume that the mega backdoor Roth is IRA related, when in truth, it's not. And what's missing on this list? Can you guys identify any of the types of IRAs that might be missing on this list? Because there are others. But here's the moral of the story. The moral of the story is these IRAs are completely dependent upon the custodian that they're with. And you've seen this list before. A little bit smaller. You've seen this list before. Is your IRA with an active custodian who allows you to invest in what they have? Is it with an active custodian that allows you to invest in non-traditional investments, but you have to do it through them? Or is your IRA sitting with a passive custodian? And here's the thing about a passive custodian with an IRA. An IRA requires a certain amount of structure. So it's not even a true passive custodian if you have a true self-directed IRA, because the structure just isn't there. So your IRA has to take a few more steps, meaning a custodian is required to be involved if we're talking about an IRA. But understanding the type of custodian you have helps you also understand the type of IRA that you have, because there's not just two types. There are many different types. And it really all starts with understanding the role that your custodian plays as it relates to a vehicle like this.
Yeah, that
Because
part.
if you can understand the type of custodian you have, it also will help you understand what actions need to happen so that you can get yourself out of this situation. Meaning, this mega backdoor Roth encompasses all of these. A self-directed Roth IRA encompasses all of these. So there are vehicles out there that will allow you to invest in everything that you want to invest in. It's just then in this slide, then it kind of just determines or boils down to: are we talking traditional dollars, or are we talking Roth dollars? Are we talking after tax dollars, or are we talking before tax dollars? Are we talking tax-free income, or income that's going to be taxed when it's time for you to start taking a distribution? So I think this is the most important piece of the day, and that is understanding where and who your IRA is with, because there's not just one type. There's not just two types. There are unlimited, meaning, and I stated this yesterday, so I don't want to offend anyone, but to me, it's almost like a church, meaning there are churches out here that build their entire congregation around a scripture, one scripture, versus the totality of the information that they're trying to provide. And so therefore, this custodian here can offer IRAs just based off this one option of being able to invest in mutual funds, stocks, and bonds. And then this other custodian over here can just create IRAs just purely based off investing in just crypto, or just gold, or or just silver. So meaning it allows these custodians to determine what position they want to be in and dictate to you what you can or cannot invest in. But you don't realize this until you have it. You don't realize this until you fall into this trap. Meaning, hey, I know this custodian will allow me to invest in crypto, so I need a crypto specific IRA. No, you don't. What you need is an IRA without restriction. And that IRA without restriction will allow you to invest in crypto, and invest in syndication, and invest in real estate, and invest in land, and invest in private placement. So there's not a this or that, or I need this one, not that one. There's one vehicle that will allow you to do it all.
I remember back in the day before we got involved with any of this stuff, and I just had marketing agency, clients, projects, work. And I was doing these projects for Goldco. Remember, I had this client, Goldco, and I didn't know what the heck they did. I knew it was like gold IRA. They just kept talking about this. And at the time, I had no idea what this stuff was. It wasn't my business. to know exactly what it was or how it was used. It was like know how to position this right for the project that I was doing. And so as I started to peel back the layers, and then later on we peeled back and we learned all of this stuff, I thought, why would they be offering their own IRA? Why would they do that to people? Why would they require, in order for you to invest with them, that you have to use, their gold IRA? Like it was a special gold plated IRA. Like you got, I don't know, some gold certificate or something that comes in the mail and it's fancy and you frame it because it's a gold IRA. The way that they spoke about it too probably had people feeling like, oh yeah, no, I want the gold ones. If I'm going to get an IRA, I'm going to get the gold one. But later on, I realized, well, how many IRAs do people have then? If they have a gold IRA, if they have a silver IRA, if they have now, somebody in our comments said a Bitcoin
Right.
IRA.
Right.
And they were asking, what do you guys think about the Bitcoin IRAs? And we're sitting here going, what we appreciate, what we think about them is that it is clever marketing.
That's it.
Because what they are able to do then is, as long as they position it as something that's special and you think that you need to have this thing, and you're not asking questions like, well, can I invest in your products without having to do this, right? Is this an actual requirement? Or if I have a self-directed account that I can invest in these things, these are prohibited, not prohibited transactions, right? So I can invest in precious metals with my own account. Can I do that with you? If they say no, they're requiring you to have an account, that's different. However, I don't think most people even know to ask.
Right.
Therefore, how many accounts are you having? How many IRAs could you possibly start collecting? What are these, like Beanie Babies at this point? And then you're paying fees on all of those. Fees on fees on fees.
Who benefits from you having to have a crypto IRA or Bitcoin IRA along with your gold IRA, along with your mutual fund stocks and bonds IRA? Who benefits? Each one of those custodians that are requiring you to jump through these hoops.
But the part is that the majority of people don't know that it's not like they did something wrong in getting all of these IRAs. That's the part. Is some of these companies, in order to be able to invest in them, or you start a new job and they go, no, this is how we do things over here. And you go, well, okay, like, what are you going to do? Go to HR and say, no, you're going to have to restructure everything because I'm here now. You're not going to say that. You're just going to go along with it. Like, what do we know? If we all had to be retirement planners, right, and learn all of this stuff before we started our jobs, which I think we should have just learned it in school. That's just my opinion. If we had to learn all of this stuff on the fly, we wouldn't do our jobs as effectively, right? So because it's not taught in schools, we're learning it now. We're making time for it now because we understand that they know how overwhelming this can be, and they can fly these clever marketing packaging by us, and we'll just go, okay, well, it's an IRA, so clearly they can't call it an IRA if it's not an IRA because it's government mandated and regulated, so it's going to be safe, right? If I get it, yeah, I can trust it, and then you can't.
And I think that's the part, is because the structure is there. The real question is, okay, if I've got this crypto or this Bitcoin IRA, can I invest in some of these other vehicles? Like, can I, now that I know this, now that I know that I didn't need it, is this something that I can now leverage this vehicle to invest in these other things? And again, what ends up happening is your plan documents are built around these singular items. And as a result, that IRA can only invest in these items. And also, you have to look at it from the liability of the company that you're getting it from. From their perspective, they're saying we only will are I'll call it accountable for making sure that you're able to invest in this one item.
And because they're the custodian, they get to make the rules.
They get to make that decision. That is correct.
Yeah.
Versus you being able to put yourself in a position where you can take ownership over all of it. Meaning you don't need them. You don't need them to be able to invest in their product. What you need is to be properly structured.
Right.
You being properly structured to be able to take action on behalf of, meaning your IRA, your self-directed IRA, your 100% checkbook controlled self-directed IRA can invest in all of these things by simply using the EIN number of the vehicle that you have to be able to invest. Because how do these, I'll call it individual IRAs, or how do these accounts end up becoming open? They end up becoming open because they're being furnished with any earned income from you as the individual under your social.
Yeah.
But guess what? If you had your own self-directed IRA, your social is not involved. The EIN number of that self-directed IRA is now what's opening these vehicles, which means now you can open an account in all of them.
Yeah. We've got some really good comments and questions coming in. One is from Charles D. He says self-directed IRAs are usually part of a 401k rollover discussion.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. And self-directed in general, the term is loosely used as well,
Yes.
because in most cases, self-directed just means, again, you have to remember who benefits. Self-directed just means, from the custodian's perspective, you get to choose, you get to pick and choose anything that we offer. Whereas self-directed on our side of things means you can invest in what you want, regardless of where. So there's two different, and again, you have to understand, in order for them to, I'll call it, handcuff you, they build this structure around what you can invest in, and then you're locked in. The cool part about that is you do have the ability to transfer penalty-free, tax-free into another vehicle if you want. But understanding the definition of self-directed also matters as well, because again, in most cases, self-directed just means you can invest in these mutual funds, stocks, and bonds that we offer you. So pick between any of the 70. But as far as stepping outside of that, that's not possible.
Well, one more point here, because it's important that people know this part. Self-directed IRAs are usually the only thing that people talk about, especially when you're talking about rolling over a 401k. And here's what's interesting. So we talked about how IRAs came into play in the first, like what solutions, what problems they were solving, right? But why did 401ks come into the place? And to Tabitha's point, she asked a really good question earlier, and this is why I was like, you're gonna love this answer, or she's gonna hate it. Or she's gonna hate it.
50-50 shot.
Yeah. She said, so essentially they kept the IRA at a lower level because they wanted to truly limit the amount of tax-free benefit they allowed you to have. Here's the thing. That is not it. It seems like that, but they win regardless. They've already set themselves up almost like a mortgage, right? On your retirement plan, you get a little bit of a benefit up here. You get a lower payment, right? But over time, they're the ones that are truly winning. She was also asking, does the 2/3 apply to IRAs?
Well, let's first address the first one though.
Well, hold on. It's gonna come back. So
Okay.
yeah. So right. So let's put a pin in that, and let's go back, because the reason why the 401k has a bigger limit, you immediately go, well, that's better for the people, right? Like the people. And then you learn it had nothing to do with the people. The reason why it has a larger limit is because it was designed to incentivize corporations, not the people, not the employees, the corporations who employed them. That's why it was created, and that's why you can put more money into it, because that means they get to have more incentives poured out across the table, and there's more people who can siphon off fees because it goes through a different process.
And the reason the IRA is kept at a lower level is so that, if remember, any earned income can fund an IRA. So if I have one and you have one, but I happen to make hundreds of $1,000s a year in income based off the job that I have, and you do not. The idea is they're going to keep the contribution limits low enough so that it levels the playing field, and you aren't allowed to, or I'm not allowed to somehow contribute more than you would be able to. So it's designed to level the playing field between you and I, so it doesn't create some dissension that says, hey, because you make more than me, or because I make more than you, I'm now allowed to be able to contribute more. And again, it's a sad subject, but it's the truth.
Oh,
It's
don't
purely based off leveling the playing field between us as contributors to this vehicle.
and don't forget to tell them, Donnell, that really the truth about around the IRA is because it can have be any earned income, right? Into your individual retirement account, retirement agreement, whatever they want to call it.
Right.
The other reason why they kept it so low, this is written in the code, is to protect people from messing it up. They really claimed that the reason why they're not going to allow you more tax shelter or more, even if you were to put them in as Roth dollars, right? Just to be able to put in more income into your future, into your IRA, is because they don't want you to mess it up. This is for your protection. It's a real
Most
thing.
most of the rules around traditional retirement planning is phrased as to protect you. And in some cases that might be true, but in most it's a disguise. It's a disguise to basically say, hey, the less you know, the better. So just, hey, don't worry your little head. Just, we're doing this for you. We're here to help. We're the
But
government.
but how many generations of people did they convince that this was too complicated if the government had to put a cap on how much you could do by yourself? First they said, "Hey, let them do it. Let them have all the risk. Let them have all the responsibility. Let them have all of the consequence if they can't get the number high enough, right?
Right.
All the consequence is theirs. There's nothing that the government's going to say like, "Oh, our bad. We didn't let you put enough in. So here's some more money." They don't do that. So now, how many generations of people were convinced that they can't learn how to do this on their own, right? Because golly, there's laws in place just so that we don't mess it up, and they're here to protect us. My goodness, we're blowing the whistle on a lot of things. This is on brand for us, but this is my favorite one.
But it also kind of, I think it rolls right into the last mistake, and that is making the assumption that tax deferrals is actually good for you. And really understanding where the ability for you to defer your taxes until you retire, like what is that actually rooted in? And to understand that, we have to understand what it means. So to defer your taxes is basically saying, hey, I'm going to plant a seed and I'm not going to pay taxes on that seed, even though today the cost of me planting that seed is probably less than it will be 50 years from now. So even though that may be true, I get to plant this seed today. And as that harvest, or as that seed continues to grow and that harvest is met, when I go to now finally be able to live off the fruits of my labor, the government comes along and says, hey, before you do that, you owe us. You owe us for the time that it took for that seed to actually bear fruit. And I think I hadn't connected this dot, but sweetheart, you did, and I think you did it very, very well. And that is this really about you having to pay the taxes that are owed, or is this where the government actually became a bank?
Yes.
And from that perspective, the bank is saying, hey, now that you have generated the income that you're supposed to be generating, you owe us for this asset that we have allowed you to benefit from over the last 20, 30 years or whatever the time frame is. So we want the return on our investment.
Yes. If you're team bank, put it in the chat. I think this is no different than when you get a 30-year mortgage, right? This is a 30-year period for most people, and you're getting the upfront win. You get to live in the house, you get to have the tax reduction, right? Those are the upfront benefits. And then over time, they're going, okay, well now you get to stay in the house forever now that you paid it off. 30-year mortgage, right? Fine. But you think you paid one price, which whatever that was that you had was on the paperwork in the beginning of the sale. But if you really were to do the math, you've more than paid double, right? In most cases. Doesn't matter. You think, oh, it's only a X% interest loan. Because back in the day, you could get some really good interest rates, right? So here in this particular instance, we have no idea what the rate's going to be. So imagine if we had a variable rate on our mortgage, we have no idea
Right.
what it's going to be.
You're giving the government an open checkbook to charge you whatever the rate is at this point.
Based on the market value.
That's it.
Based on the market value of your home, your lender, your mortgage broker could just charge you whatever they want based on the market value, not what you owe, but on the market value of your home at the 30th year, at the 35th year, right? This is even better than a mortgage if you think about it, because over time, the amount of fees that have been taken out and siphoned out, those don't matter because it's not like it reduces what taxes you have to pay, right? They're still in there.
Right. And I think what's interesting is, and I hadn't connected this dot before, but I think this visual actually says it. So this is the government that's coming after the harvest once it's been met. But what's been happening throughout this period? Like who's been watering the plants? Who's been tilling and making sure the weeds weren't there? Where there's been these little banks and these custodians floating around here that, if you know what, have actually impacted the growth. Because I think there was a question about around the 2/3. Is the 2/3 impacted? Well, depending on where this IRA is sitting and who the custodian is that's actually holding your IRA, you are absolutely correct. Before you even accomplished your goal, they have been picking away at your harvest before it's even matured. And so what ends up happening is this could have been 2/3 more of what it was supposed to have been,
Right,
but siphoned off before you were even in a position to be able to leverage or use it. So
right.
before you even hit retirement age, 2/3 of it have already been siphoned off in fees.
Yeah, 2/3 is 19 years, y'all. 19 years. That means you could have retired here. This right here, this one could have been this big
Right.
here.
Right. Here you could have been here had you not lost 2/3 in fees.
And you could have retired and enjoyed the rest of your life with the income that was supposed to be promised to you because you did all the responsible things. And this is why we have to stop believing that we don't need to learn this stuff or that it's too hard to learn. It is can feel overwhelming. It does for most people. That's okay. It's going to be overwhelming. We're signing up for it anyway, right? We know when we go to the gym, we're going to be sore. That's just what this is financial gym.
Like
this is the membership, free membership for the financial gym, and we meet twice a week. Okay, that's what we do.
And I think that implies that somehow Roth is better. And I just want to kind of talk through this. Roth is actually, in the long run, better. But you also have to understand where the government's coming from and why Roth was even introduced. So, excuse me. So Roth, what the Roth does, it allows you to now pay the tax on the seed once it's planted, but now the growth is growing tax-free. Now, again, depending on who it's with, you may still be impacted by those custodial fees, but the key behind Roth is, hey, here's an opportunity for you to now start generating tax-free income or tax-free growth. The thought process from the government was this. The real reason the government introduced Roth was because they were tired of I'll call it delving out those tax returns year over year. For that, let me kind of set the stage a little bit. Let's say it's set 1975 and you're putting away your $1,500 for this year. Well, when you put in your $1,500 into your traditional IRA, meaning you're putting it in tax deferred, that means the amount of taxable income for that year is $1,500 less, which is significant. And because it's $1,500 less, that means the government is going to actually owe you some type of tax return. And that tax return might be $500. So not only were you able to reduce your taxable income by $1,500, you also ended up receiving a tax return of $500, which means the government had to give you back $500 of the money that you spent. So the government came along and said, wait a minute. We want our money now. I don't want to wait till Angelique is 60 years old before I get my money. What can I do to incentivize her to pay me today?
Yeah, we need more money.
I want my taxes today.
Yeah, rent to own your future.
You're absolutely correct. And so the thought process around Roth is, so now you're going to pay the taxes on, again, using that same, well, $1,500 today looks more like $7,000 to $8,000. I'm sorry, $1,575 looks more like $7,000 today. So let's use the 7,000. So you're going to contribute that $7,000. You're going to pay taxes on that 7,000. So we got our return on investment up front.
Right.
The issue with this is from a government perspective, because again, who benefits? Government didn't do this because it was benefiting you. Let's be honest.
Right.
Government did this because they would get their return on their investment up front now,
Yeah.
but it was short-sighted. It was actually a mistake made by the government that actually benefits us, because yes, we're going to owe interest, or we're going to owe taxes on that $7,000 today. But if that $7,000 continues to compound, that $7,000 turns into $500,000, $1 million in the future, I pay zero taxes on that $930,000 that $7,000 made me over that period of time.
Yeah.
And
I
they've been
think,
trying to fix this, but they can't.
yeah.
They have pushed themselves, they've backed themselves into a corner to where Roth is Roth. And because Roth has now been added to pensions, you get a Roth inside of a TSP, a 457 plan, a 403B, a 401k. So as a result, they cannot back themselves out. But what happened in addition? Well, so now what ended up happening is the government has been pulled out, but the company that you work for and the custodian that your account is with, they got into cahoots and they figured out a way to, you know what, nickel and dime you out of that, I'll call it that growth that you're having over time, which still impacts that 2/3 of your account being taken.
Because
So
it's not taxes anymore. Now it's just called fees.
exactly. So who wins? Well, the government gains their immediate ROI, and then we gain the growth potential. But you know who also wins? The custodian who holds that account. So this is where the account sits matters. And so I just wanted to kind of bring this back into play as it relates to Roth. So from a Roth perspective, yes, we're planting this seed and we're paying taxes on this seed today. But any of this growth is yours. But where this account is sitting and who this account is sitting with impacts your ability to either keep 2/3 of your account or lose 2/3 of your account due to custodial fees.
Okay, the other thing is if you overfund your account on accident, even
Right.
if you make one of these mistakes that we're talking about, if you don't pay attention to the withdrawal rules as well, they have all of these things set up that now there are all these penalties. So if you want access to your money, that's fine. How about we bring up Charles's addition at the beginning? If it wasn't sitting in there for 5 years, seasoned.
Right.
Right.
So again, it just to kind of restate that. So if this is a Roth account, again, you're planting your funds here. So you've planted the seed. You've paid taxes on the seed. Let's call it $7,000. So you've paid taxes on that $7,000 today. You know the tax rate today. Well,
Yeah.
your account has to be in place for 5 years before any of this growth is tax-free. But after that 5-year period, everything from this point forward is tax-free, and you can take a distribution starting at age 59 and a half at midnight at midnight of your 59 and a half birthday is when you can actually start taking those tax-free distributions. So again, this is just a part of the rules that are in play. But again, who benefits? Who benefits from you waiting those 5 years? Well, the government is actually hoping you make a mistake. Because
Yes.
if you do, now this entire harvest becomes taxable.
Yeah, y'all ever played Minesweeper? You want to go through the rules and things that they can penalize you for. It's like playing Minesweeper, unless you know the rules. And that's really what it is just understand that these retirement accounts, these traditional retirement accounts, the way that they were set up, there's a structure around, and they want to make this is their investment. So the payments, the taxes that you'll pay, the penalties that you'll pay, all of that is part of their ROI. No different than a landlord charging a late fee, right? Or something, or an application fee, or a cleaning fee, or deposit. All of those things are to cover some sort of what the landlord would say would be the expense. Which, okay, if you're talking about a landlord, that's one thing. But they're not. What are they doing? What are they doing? We even have to pay to file our taxes. And with everything else that we have to set up, we're doing most of the work, and then we're saying like, is this how much we owe you? And they're
Well,
like, no, I don't know. We'll think about it. Maybe it'd be more. We don't know.
well, and that's where,
Yeah.
because we've had this conversation with our kids a lot as well. Because the thought process is you want a tax return, but in truth, you don't. You want to, I'll call it adjust, make the proper adjustment such that you maybe spend somewhere between zero to maybe $500 in taxes, because what that means is you're keeping most of your money throughout the year
And-
versus getting a tax return of 10,000 or more dollars, which means you gave the government too much. And what did they do with that? They compounded it. They made money off of it.
yes.
So who's better at it, you or the government?
Yes. And it's just a free loan,
That's it.
and they're already getting interest, right? They're getting, here, it's this way, interest. They're getting their money. They're getting their fair share.
And a couple things here, because if you watch tonight's live and you know anything about what it is we do, like I create IRAs and 401ks. Like I create these products. I help you build Roth dollars. The purpose for sharing this is so that you can understand like what role you need to play in this process. Anyone, any custodian, any bank you go to can build a product like this. But how it's structured matters. Who it's with matters. Whether or not your account is being whittled away by 2/3 in fees depends upon whether or not you understand what custodian it's with and what are those things you can or cannot invest in. And what we talk about on this channel is about taking control. We can't change the rules, meaning if you have a traditional IRA, that means you're putting in tax deferred dollars, and that means at some point you're going to owe taxes on that money. Can't change that rule. But what I can do is help you understand how to get beyond it, or understand this is where you are and what actions need to be taken to fix it. Meaning, if you have a traditional IRA here, the tax rate today is actually at its lowest point today, then the objective should be, how can I convert this to Roth so that any of this additional growth is now growing tax free? Maybe you have an IRA with a couple 100,000, let's call it $100,000 in it, and you're 50 years old, which means you've got 10 years before you turn 60. Rather than taking that $100,000 and allowing that additional tax deferred growth to happen, how about you parse out or take a portion of that $100,000 and convert it to Roth over time. Again, it's 100,000. You're 50 years old. You've got 10 years till you turn 60. How about you take $10,000 a year and convert it to Roth? And then by the age of 60, all of those traditional dollars would have been converted to over to tax-free growth, and any growth on those dollars during that period is also growing tax-free. So again, it's just about information, because I'm not saying don't get an IRA. Yet last week we were talking about 401ks. I'm not saying don't get a 401k. It's understanding what you have so that you can make the right decisions. Because these custodians, these banks, these financial institutions will not. And it's intentional, because the less you know, the less action you can take. The less action you can take, the now more beholden you are to them being able to siphon off that 2/3 in fees. So,
Yeah, Ty was saying, so are y'all saying we need to become custodians?
well, that's a great point. Because what I am saying, you have to become self-directed. You have to
Yeah.
take more control, have more ownership in this process, and be able to understand the role that your custodian plays so that you can check them, so that you can
Mm,
hold them accountable to the actions that they're taking with your money. Because what most of us do is we set it and forget it. Hey, I'm doing my part. I put my money in my IRA. That's all I need to do. Well, that would be nice, but that's not the case.
right. So but can you become your own custodian? What she's talking about really is saying like, how do you get out from underneath that, right? So
Yep.
that you do have more control. We just went over the types of custodians, right? Or
Yep.
do you have more to go?
No, I'm done. I'm done. That's it. So,
Okay.
as far as I think a better way of stating this might be, becoming self-directed means, if we're talking about an IRA, it's about creating a self-directed, checkbook controlled IRA. What does that even mean? Well, what that means is we would move those funds from that custodian that's impacting your ability to do what it is you're wanting to do, and we would create a brand new IRA for you. But again, IRAs are glorified savings accounts. They don't have the structure required for you to be able to invest in what you want. So they actually require custodial support. So the key is, okay, if I require custodial support, can I at least get it with a custodian that is not destroying me from a fee perspective? And the answer is yes. So it still has to be an active custodian, but can you move those funds to a custodian that charges you less in fees? Maybe they're flat. Instead of it being based off the size of your account or nickel and diming you on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, maybe they're flat fees. And maybe there's no balance transfer or check writing fees, meaning there's different conversations that can be had because there are different custodians out there that understand that, hey, maybe you need and can handle more control. But still, just having a custodian that charges flat fees isn't enough. That IRA would then have to purchase an LLC. Because if you're wanting to be able to invest your funds in non-traditional investments, you need the structure to be able to do so, which means the IRA has to create an LLC, which gives it its own EIN number. You take that EIN number, open up a checking account. You can now move those funds from that IRA into the checking account of the 401k. You now have checkbook control. And for those of you who are going, but that still sounds like way too much effort and work for me. Again, I go back to, I am not saying you don't want your IRA with Fidelity. What I hope you take away from this is what Fidelity is doing to you. So if you're okay with that, be okay with that. But if you're not, here's an opportunity for you to take other action so that you can reduce the amount of impact that some of these custodians are having on your ability to be able to retire. And the last piece I'll add to that is maybe it's also stating, maybe I need to find another vehicle. Maybe the IRA and the 401k or the 403b and the TSP isn't my end all. Maybe it's not the only. Maybe I need to add an and. Is there another vehicle out there that I could eliminate all of this nonsense? Have a true set it and forget it. Be able to put my hard-earned money in a place such that it's not being dwindled away by 2/3 of fees. Is there another product? And the short answer to that question is yes. And again, this is why we talk about this stuff on this channel. It's not a this or that. It's a this and that. Because some of us work for a company that we don't have a choice. So how about you limit your impact? I'm going to reduce the amount that I'm contributing into my company's product because I know it's not going to get me to where I need it to be. So therefore, I can take this additional cash flow, this additional income, and put it in a vehicle that can actually help me hit my goal. And where else am I missing an opportunity for leverage? What I've learned today is how the government and how the company that I work for and how banks are leveraging me. Are there other areas in my life where this might be happening? And can I make some adjustments to how I'm paying for the home that I'm living in so that I can leverage it better, so that I can put my home in a better position so that I can access it the way these banks have been accessing it? So that I can take this money that I have in my home or this cash value life insurance product or these other vehicles where I can reclaim my leverage to be able to have it start working for me.
Yeah. What's the goal and how do we get there? Well, I think for some people, they think, is it too late for me? Why start now? Why get aggressive now? This stuff takes time, like get rich slow. All of this stuff takes time, and it takes these small actions or deposits that I don't have big chunks, or I'm not willing to put my savings into something like I feel more safer having it in my savings than I would putting it in a vehicle like this, especially after you just said all this stuff about fees. Which I want to bring Pinky's comment back up because it had me dying. Ain't that just the fees knees?
It actually sounds like something you would say.
It does.
It does.
One more time because that was good. Well played on that. This guy's a comedian. Okay, so we have some more questions, so I want to get to them. Lucinda says we need to create a cheat sheet for our retirement accounts. Absolutely. One of those things that we do have.
Well, I was going to say a cheat sheet, or you need to get on my calendar.
Yeah. Grab your notebook, grab the workbook here, and it's free. This essentially is kind of like your cheat sheet to be able to understand, get your whole financial profile together. For a lot of people, this is like the first time that they've ever done that, and that can be a scary thing too. For some people, they're going, hey, I pretty much know where I am. I'm just wanting to make sure that I can optimize and protect what it is that I have. That is that is a conversation, and that is a real concern for most people. They don't know who they can trust, and so now they're just trying to get educated on what to do, right? Different. For others, though, they're going like, okay, I'm trying to take this seriously, and I'm really trying to make the right moves here. One, I don't want to be looking stupid out there asking questions. So Donnell, help me understand what questions to ask people when I am making these calls, whether if it's around my HELOC, whether if it's around understanding where my leverage is, just so that I can wrap my head around it, right? That's what these calls are for.
Yeah.
So you jump on the calendar just to be able to even have that conversation and feel more confident. That's the whole point.
And I think for me, it always starts with what's the goal. But I want to make sure for those of you who may not have met with me before, what I'm really trying to get to there is 9 times out of 10, the objective that you're trying to hit is probably 3 layers deeper than what it is than what you think it is right now. Meaning, usually the conversation starts out with paying off a debt, or usually the conversation starts out with paying off your home, or something that you can see that's impacting your ability to function right now, right there in front of you. But let's look beyond that. And usually, the next question behind what's the goal is, what vehicles are you like? Where are you putting your money today to be able to hit that goal? Like before talking to me, you were already headed down that path. So, what actions are you taking right now today? If the objective is generational wealth, or if the objective is to be able to retire early, hey, I'm 42 years old and I want to be able to retire before 59. Okay, awesome. Then where are you putting your extra funds right now to be able to put yourself in a position so that you can retire by 59?
Right.
Usually it's my company's retirement account and my dad told me to get an IRA. Okay, show me or name the company retirement account or the IRA that will allow you to be able to access the funds before 59 and a half. It doesn't exist. But we've been conditioned to believe that these are the vehicles that are supposed to be putting our money in. So if that's the true objective, then the conversation ends up pivoting to then name. Like I don't want to name them. You name the vehicles that will allow you to put your money in a position to be able to assist you in retiring early. And it's not like some exhaustive list. It's not super long. Like there's really a few different avenues. Like there's day trading, like if you day trade well enough, you can put yourself in a position to where you can fire your job. There's crypto. Like you can absolutely, go after the right coins to be able to put yourself in a position to be able to retire early. But let's be realistic. Those things involve risk of doing great and risk of not. So in most cases, if we're talking about retirement and wealth and firing our job, we're looking for security. Most of those vehicles are not. So what are the secure vehicles that will allow us to get there? I think there's a debate here, but I would call real estate being fairly secure. I think, timing matters as it relates to real estate, but the likelihood of real estate being as volatile as a Bitcoin, I think we can agree that real estate is not that. So I would say real estate is maybe one of those vehicles. Cash, properly structured cash value life insurance policies is absolutely one of those vehicles. But outside of that, what else is there?
Okay, I got a list.
Go
I
for
can
it,
tell
Samir.
you that the majority of stuff that has made people silently rich are the most unsexy businesses ever.
I'm listening.
Laundromats, vending machines, assisted living facilities. What? These are things that a lot of people have gone like, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not going to do that. But the truth is, there's a reason why these businesses still exist, right? Now it's luxury. I just sent it to you. Matter of fact, I found one and I sent it to you because I got an ad for it. It's a luxury self-storage, but just for workshops. That's it. And it's luxury. So all of the cabinetry inside, right? You can have a luxury workshop to do whatever you want to do. If you want to polish up your car and you just rent this just to keep your car and polish it up when you want to, do you, boo. You can do this at a luxury self-storage unit near you.
But notice of the, I think, four that you just named, three of them are real estate.
Yeah, but when people think real estate, they don't think of
Right.
this,
Right.
right? They're not thinking, well, assisted living is a business. It's
Right.
real estate, but it's still a business.
Right, because it starts with the property and making sure the property is properly structured for you to be able to bring in this business.
Right.
The only thing that you listed that is not real estate related is the vending machines, because even a laundromat is the same thing. It's really about location, and I mean, it these are all real estate based products. But again, I go back to the list is not very long.
Yeah.
It's
And
either real estate or it's properly structured cash value life insurance policies. If
yeah.
you're not talking about either one of them, again, from a security perspective, 9 times out of 10, it's very difficult to discuss retiring early or whatever that goal might be.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, maybe it's retire early, but maybe it's with an encore career.
Yep.
So, for a lot of people are looking into buying up businesses because as people age out and they've been owning their own business, they've got an aged business, they have to be able to step down. It will cost them far more to just close the business than it would to be able to sell it off. And if this business is still operational or the location is good, they have to do something with it. And so this is where a lot of people get their come up too. And so this is where startups, investing in startups can come into play. Being able to be structured properly so that you can invest in these things. And this isn't I have to go to get a loan. I have to qualify somehow. I have to get permission from somebody. You can put yourself in a position of leverage where you do qualify for this, right? You do look really attractive on paper. And in addition, you're not necessarily asking for permission. It's not a matter of can I, it's how much.
Right.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. Okay, we have a lot of questions, so I just want to fire off. Is that okay?
Go for it, sweetheart.
Okay. Scott Hess says, so should I stop contributing to my Roth IRA rather than send that to a SKIA?
Again, there may be a few questions like this, and I think my response is probably going to end up being the same for all of them. It depends. It depends on the goal. And Scott, I know a little bit about you. My question would be, what is your IRA currently invested in? How is it doing? What's that growth? Because again, you are building tax-free profit. What type of custodian is it with? Is there an opportunity to transition that IRA into maybe a self-directed Roth IRA to reduce some of the fee structure that you're being impacted by? Or is there an opportunity to transition some of those self-directed Roth dollars to be able to invest in other non-traditional investments versus just eliminating your contribution to that Roth IRA and moving it over to a SKIA? Can you move it? Can you stop contributing to your Roth IRA and take those funds and move them to a secure compound interest account? You absolutely can. But as far as should you or is that the right idea? One, I can't give you financial advice, but moral of the story is it really depends on what the goal is and how how taking these types of making these types of adjustments impacts your ability to be able to hit that goal.
Okay, Shay has a question coming up about, well, I'll just move her up just for how do I check the fees I'm being charged on my Roth IRA? Because I think it does matter, like what's impacting your growth, right?
Yep. As far as I know, now I know this is different as it relates to a 401k, but as far as I know, as it relates to the fee schedule inside of IRAs, that information is readily available. Meaning it should be as simple as going into your account and you can download can I get this word out? Prospectus, I believe is what it's called, to be able to kind of talk through what that fee structure looks like. It should be fairly easy, but here's the part. It's probably written in Chinese, meaning it is probably difficult to understand because they don't make it very easy to understand. It should be as simple as transfer fees look like this. Every time you do a transfer or some type of purchase of a mutual fund, stock, or bond, there's a charge that relates to this. I am confident that is detailed out, but it may still be very difficult to understand. I think the easiest thing to do is to have a conversation with the custodian and have them walk you through the fees. Put the responsibility on them to break down what the costs are, why they're that way, can they be adjusted, what are the options to be able to improve? Because a lot of times your fees are based off the size of your account. A lot of times, people who have less are paying more. And so I think understanding those details are key. And again, it's different for every custodian. This is not a one size fits all game. As I mentioned, people think there's only two types of IRAs, but there are many, many more. And it's all because it's all based around what that custodian decided or chose to do. So,
Okay. So B, chill, somewhere in there in the ballpark of that name.
I won't
Okay.
tell you the song that's in my head now. I don't know if you
No,
can
I
guess
had
it.
one too. Is it Black Eyed Peas?
No.
Oh.
Why you acting like a
Oh, okay. See,
sorry.
I was like, I'm a B. Okay. Can you discuss the average charges on creating a self-directed IRA and add the monthly or the maintenance fees? Example of an average 45 to 1,000K is appreciated.
So that's where a self-directed IRA, depending on the custodian you're with, may look different. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of the self-directed IRA that I create. The custodians that we use are still active custodians, but their custodial fees are flat. And what do I mean? Maybe the annual custodial maintenance charge might be $50. Maybe it's $100 versus that custodial fee is monthly. And it's also it's based off the amount that you have in the account. And so therefore it increases as the amount of money that they're servicing increases. The cost of the IRA is also flat. And so therefore it doesn't change. And the piece that I think people, it's hard to wrap your head around until you're in the middle of it, those costs are not based off the amount in your account. Most, or not most, a lot of custodians that you get IRAs from, if I came to this custodian with $10,000 to open an IRA, it might look like $1 amount. But if I came also, if someone else came to that same custodian with $1 million, the cost to create that IRA is based off the size or the amount that's being transferred into it versus the type of IRA that I create. It doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter whether you have $1 or $30 million. The cost of that IRA is the same. The fees associated with that IRA are the same. So it really truly depends on the custodian and the type of IRA that you're getting that kind of lay out what that fee structure looks like.
And this is where a lot of people will say they have a really low fee coming in, like $99. And they'll set up this account for you and you're going like, wow, that's crazy.
You can Google it. You can go to fidelity.com right now, click on IRA, and it might cost you $99 like you're saying.
Yeah.
It might be something that small.
And they were like, we're the lowest fees in the land. And then you learn that they get their money
Right.
like 10 times over. And so it's just better when you know that someone is not tied to your activity. Nobody has their eyes on your account and what it is that you're doing. And they also don't have to have any kind of bungee cord tied to your account either every time you do a transaction to make sure that they know, got to be quicker because we need that. We need that $50 every time you come in here. You're gonna have to give us $50. Our bad if you didn't read that. So I appreciate it where you just know right up front, like these people have been taken care of for the service that they provided, and that's it. That's over. If they're going to benefit anymore, it's because they gave a stellar service, and I'm going to send more people their way. That's how we like to do it. But I love when people ask that question too, like, well, how much would it be if I had this amount of money? And you say, right, you know what? How about this? When you start it, just put $1 in there. Just put enough in there to start the account. And then I don't even have to know how much you have.
Yeah.
Don't matter to me.
And that is very, very clear. And I think that speaks to, and this is something that we don't normally discuss, and that is the roles and responsibilities in this process. Like, what is it that I actually do as it relates to a retirement account?
Yeah.
I am just a third-party administrator. What that means is I create empty, checkbook-controlled, self-directed retirement accounts. Empty, meaning I don't need to know what you have. I don't need to know where it's coming from. None of that matters. As long as you meet the criteria for me to be able to create the account for you, I am going to create an empty checkbook-controlled account for you. The transfer of Whatever that dollar amount is into that 401k or into that IRA, it's going to come from you. It's not even going to come from me. That's not even a part of my process. Now, if you have questions on how to go about it, I'm here 100% to be able to walk you through what that looks like. But as far as how much you have, or needing to know, or somehow those dollars being passed through me to get to your account, does not happen that way. I create an empty checkbook controlled retirement account linked to either your business as it relates to a 401k, or linked to you personally if we're talking about an IRA. And then once I've done that, I have zero visibility into your account. It is now self-directed, meaning who's going to be the person or the entity that's going to move those funds penalty-free, tax-free into that account. It's going to be you. Now, again, I'm here to assist in any way, shape, or form, but self-directed means just that. You have control. So if you wanted to transfer all of it, you have the choice of the ability to be able to do that. If you wanted to transfer a portion of it so that you can take action, you have the ability to do that as well. So.
Okay. Now we got Mark. He has some good questions or comments. Mark always has good comments. The truth is that more than 80% of the workers putting money in a 401k is actually putting money that they wouldn't have had to pay taxes on in the first place.
True story.
This is where they get the corporations were incentivized, right? They get to double dip. They get to say, well, we'll pay you less because we're going to give you this match, right? Because we're giving you this opportunity, we're going to pay you less. And then on top of that, because we're paying you less, we also get a perk for that, right? So there's a double dip for them. And that's why this particular vehicle was more about creating jobs, right? Like all of these,
the incentive, like
every election, it's all about the jobs that they've been created. And some of those jobs that were created out of incentives given to other people, which could have been more salary passed on to the employee. So Mark, you're spot on. Did you want to say something else about that?
No, I think you hit it.
Okay. He also says, let's be honest, based on the average household income, how many people are able to invest the full amount allowed in a 401k? Not many.
Right. And I think that for me is really less of it, because you're right. It's a significant dollar amount for you to be able to put into a 401k fully, but at least you're not limited. And I think that's the part that disappoints me as it relates to an IRA. Again, the contribution limits for an IRA have gone from 1,500 to 7,000 in 50 years.
Yeah.
Like I would love it if the home prices moved at that same pace.
Right.
But it doesn't. So it's not fair. And especially if we're talking about this is the vehicle that we're going to use to supplement our retirement. Like we're sending a false message here.
Right. Exactly. And then along comes this 401k and everyone's like,
damn, son, where'd you find this?
And really the truth is nobody's retiring with the 401k either.
Right.
The amount of money that you need to have in this account is usually like life goals for people, right? It's not something that many people have been able to achieve. The majority of people have been able to achieve. All of the people who are working the factories who were said to have been responsible for their financial future, for these vehicles to have been created in the first place, how many of them actually have achieved a financial freedom through their retirement vehicles? Well, it's not many.
But
we
here's
don't need
the piece,
we don't need the stats. It's not many.
The piece for me, though, is the vehicle, because you're right about that. But if that vehicle, that 401k, was able to be removed out of the market, because it's not the 401k that's impacting people's ability to be able to retire. That's not the vehicle. It's the fact that the vehicle is tied to the stock market. It's the fact that, if we end up either putting Weekend at Bernie's back in the office or we end up getting this other dude, it won't matter, because what's going to happen in the market is the market won't like it. So what's going to happen with your 401k? But if we were to be in a position where that 401k could be taken out of the casino, out of the market, and put in a position to where it can buy that assisted living home, or it could buy that self-storage facility, or it could buy that whatever cash flowing asset that would allow us to also get rid of the custodian who's been eating up 2/3 of our fees. If we were able to just simply take our 401k and allow it to do what it's been designed to do. This isn't
Right.
new.
Right.
Your 401k has always been able to invest in non-traditional investments. If we would have just placed that 401k in a position so that it could do its actual job, that statement would be different. You would be able to retire from a 401k comfortably. You would be able to get closer to maxing out and putting as much as you want into it, because you know this vehicle is going to produce tax-free income for me and be able to sustain my lifestyle for the rest of my life. So I'm going to adjust everything so that I can put as much as I can into this vehicle. It's not structured that way not because of the vehicle. It's because of the company you work for and the custodian that holds it.
Psh. Mic drop. We need a thing.
Bruh.
Turn to your neighbor and tell them it's not the 401k, it's who the 401k is with.
But
It's
that
retirement.
also
We went from the
means-
retirement, the money gym to the money church.
Right. But
Twice a week, folks.
The issue with that is that also we have to be accountable, because that means that we have to take more ownership and play a larger role in this process.
Yes.
And I got 5 kids. I work all day. I'm a realist. So I understand what that means. That means that you have to play more of an active role. So I go back to, well, then are there opportunities where you can play less of an active role? And that kind of speaks to our live from a few days ago. And that was
Yeah.
the syndications and your ability to make that mailbox money. But it's making sure you're structured properly so that you can take action to be able to make that mailbox money.
Yeah. And by the way, those luxury, do you boo, luxury self-storage. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt and wear it to the next event. You can, they have syndication opportunities as well. So that's really cool. Yeah. And a lot of them, now that they understand that like people are into this and it's becoming more popular, they are advertising. You can scroll to the bottom of their page and then you can learn all about partnering with people. Different companies all over, different startups are now starting to include this information just right on the bottom of their webpage. You can just download a little printable, little ebook on it. Okay, how to invest for yourself. Hello, by the way, we haven't seen you over here. Welcome back. LLC or nonprofit, so we can pay minimum taxes. If I start an LLC, I can create a self-directed IRA or 401k, but would there be better tax advantages if I just did it all in a nonprofit boat? Well played, by the way.
So this is where we get a little bit more technical and advanced, because the truth is, because if we want to go there, let's go there. The truth is, what you would want is a charitable remainder trust. So what's a charitable remainder trust? And I'll try to explain it high level. What you would want is you would want all of your assets rolling into a charitable remainder trust. Charitable remainder, meaning when you pass, whatever the remnants, the leftovers inside of that trust are, go to your favorite charity. Okay, why would I do that? Because I'm not passing it on to my family. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, if you structure the charitable remainder trust correctly, all of your assets are going into the trust, and then you go to that nonprofit that you are wanting, or that charity that you're wanting to leave all of your assets to, and you say, hey, here's what I'll do. Instead of you having to wait till I pass or my lineage pass, depending on how many people are part of this charitable remainder trust, instead of you having to wait 50, 100 years before you're able to receive whatever that the end result would be inside of my trust, how about I buy this trust from you for $50,000? Now, it's not worded that way. There are way more legal terms associated with this, but the moral of the story is, what you end up doing is you end up buying that trust from that charity by simply making a donation, which they will be more than happy to take today, which means now you are the beneficiary of that charitable remainder trust at the end. So now that allows you to be able to get not just your IRAs and 401ks into this trust, you can get all of your assets into this charitable remainder trust and avoid taxes on all of it, because charitable remainder trusts are not taxed.
Okay, Shay had a question, and I think I unstarted on accident. It was about establishing a self-directed Roth IRA.
Let's do it.
I need to go find it. But
Oh, you
in
know
the
what?
mean,
Luckily, I think I'm looking at it. Hold on. Let me show it right here.
okay, because I just remembered that before we go to Malachi.
Is
He's
that
got
it?
2 questions. Yep.
Am I able to self-direct my Roth IRA?
Yeah.
Short answer to that question is absolutely. Here's the issue with Roth dollars. Roth dollars are a little bit weird. Roth dollars implies that you've already paid taxes on the money. So from the government's perspective, from the IRS perspective, you can self-direct a Roth IRA. That's not a problem. So all that means is you're moving your Roth IRA dollars into a self-directed Roth IRA. I can create that for you all day long. But let's say you had a Roth 401k.
Well, she just asked about the IRA, and we have other questions. You said the
Hold
short
on.
answer.
Hold on. But what if you
Okay.
had a Roth 401k? Can you take a Roth 401k or can you move a Roth IRA into a Roth 401k? You cannot. But you can take Roth 401k dollars and move them back into a Roth IRA. It's really weird. Meaning, most cases we talk about going from an IRA to a 401k because a 401k offers more flexibility. So can you take Roth IRA dollars and move them into a Roth 401k? You cannot. But you can take Roth 401k dollars and move them back into a Roth IRA. So again, my point is Roth is weird. So when you're wanting to convert Roth, please consult whoever it is you're working with to make sure they understand. So hopefully they understand what that process looks like. But yes, you can self-direct a Roth IRA.
Okay.
Sorry. Words.
Bars. All right. So moving on to Malachi. He's new. Peaky's
Hey,
friend.
Malachi,
He's Team Peaky.
like
Yeah.
the picture.
Yeah, me too. Okay, to me, I feel like it's more important to contextualize risk based
Yes.
on how long you plan on being in the market.
Yes.
Is this not the case? I imagine I'll probably buy more bonds when I'm in my 50s versus my 20s.
So, and again, this is some part of that conditioning piece. I've got a slide. I don't think it's in this deck, but it talks about target date funds. Most of our retirement is based off a target date fund. What does that mean? It means when I'm in my 20s and 30s, I'm as aggressive as possible to generate as much growth as possible inside of this account. Then, as I approach ages 40 to 50 years old, I start to transition to more bonds, and then once I'm approaching retirement age, I have very little aggression inside of my portfolio and I transition to majority bonds. But if we step back and look at that picture, meaning I'm aggressive, less aggressive, not aggressive at all going into retirement, that whole structure is backwards. But we've been conditioned to believe this is what we're supposed to do. And here's what I mean. When do you need your net worth the most? When do you need your income the most? When do you need the growth inside of that account the most?
Right.
You need it the most when you're at retirement age. But at retirement age is when your account is growing the least. Wouldn't you want an account that's exponentially getting bigger so that when you need the funds the most, you're actually at the height of its growth?
Right.
So it's that thought process is backwards. But to answer your question, you are absolutely right around contextualizing risk. And that risk is different for everyone. But if you think me being risky at my younger age and me not being risky at my lower age means that's now somehow going to help you accomplish your goal, it's actually the math doesn't math in that process. It's backwards. Go ahead.
But if you're trying to assess risk and you're just making decisions based on risk,
Yeah.
you have to be able, you have to take that into account.
He's
And if-
100% correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and if all the information that has been sold to you says something like bonds are less risk, right? Which, by the way, we were talking about this a couple streams ago about where bonds come from and the fact that every time the government bounces a check, instead of getting a bounce check fee, we just sell a bond. What if that happened to us? We were making bad decisions, and instead of our credit score being impacted, instead of our lives being impacted, instead of penalties and fees, the government was just like, you know what? Angelique didn't pay her bills this month, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to sell a bond. We're going to put it right out there.
Right.
You could catch it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong way.
There it is. Yeah, there it is. You caught the bond. And that's essentially what they are. And so we're still in these like traditional vehicles, right? That have fed a system that we now see is just getting us deeper and deeper in a hole when we are tied to these governmental systems. So if all of our money is wrapped up in these vehicles as well, then we're all on the ship together. It's just another Titanic, right? And these icebergs that are coming our way, we can already see them. We just don't know how deep or the damage that it's going to do. He's got another question, a really good one though.
And I consider risk, though, similar to, I think it falls in that same bucket around conditioning as it relates to diversification of your portfolio. Meaning, most people who say you need to diversify your portfolio are saying that because the opportunities that your money is invested in aren't that good. Because let's think about it. If you really had your money in a position to where it was doing the best it could possibly do, would you really need to move it elsewhere? Would you really need to diversify that vehicle if it was really the best one? You wouldn't.
Right.
So diversification, just like risk, to me, are some of these words that we have been conditioned to accept. And we're accepting them from people who have our money at risk. So the objective to me should be, can we remove these pieces from the opportunity? Meaning, what would it look like if you could remove risk from the equation? Would I really need to diversify my portfolio if I could eliminate and or reduce that risk?
Well, one of the risks is people having hands in your pockets. And that leads us to the next question that he has. And just so happened, we already have it queued up. Let's go.
Words for what you're about to see.
I want to get your reaction to an example that Jack Bogle gave us.
It doesn't take a genius to know that the bigger the profit of the management company, the smaller the profit that investors get.
And that is that if you invest over a 50-year investing lifetime in a mutual fund, making 7% a year on average, but you're paying 2% in fee for that 2% will erode something like 2/3 of your gains.
Not because of a market crash, not because of inflation, not because you're not invested in the right things. It's because the company responsible for managing your savings plan is taking full advantage of you through fees.
Do you really want to invest in a system where you put up 100% of the capital, you the mutual fund shareholder, you take 100% of the risk, and you get 30% of the return?
So the lower fees relative to any given investment will always result in higher accumulation.
But is his example correct? I mean, it's shocking that you would be giving up 2/3 of your...
So I don't know the math behind the example.
But does it sound correct?
Citing. It sounds high.
That 2% will erode 2/3.
It sounds high.
But you're paying 2% in fee.
Any given investment will always result in higher accumulation.
I mean, it's shocking that
Any given, it
2/3
sounds high. It sounds high. It sounds high. So I don't know the math.
in a mutual fund.
Take an account with a $100,000 balance and reduce it by 2% a year. At the end of 50 years, that 2% annual charge would subtract $63,000 from your account, a loss of 63%, leaving you with just a little over $36,000.
Why, man?
It sounds high. It sounds high. It sounds high.
So Malachi, I hope that answers your question. That's the best way to answer your question, is to send you to this deep dive that Frontline did on the retirement gamble and how a lot of people have taken a gamble by putting their dollars into these systems, not knowing that your 401k and my 401k are not the same things. Just like we were talking about different IRAs exist, different types of IRAs, different custodians, who's hosting your vehicles, right? Where they're parked and who's facilitating business and operations around them can mean that my 401k and my husband's 401k are performing completely different. Even if we work within the same industry, it just happens to be at two different companies, right? We could make the same amount, we could be putting in the same amount. And that's what it goes through these case studies of people with this particular story where the wife was going like, I'm getting ripped off because we're putting in the same amount. Why does mine look so different? And that's when they learned that they were siphoning tons of her growth out for fees. So yeah, I hope that really helped to kind of help you paint the picture of where these are coming from. This documentary was so well done, but these interviews, you can't take back what they said, right? They can't take back what they said. They can't take back how they responded. And essentially what they were saying is we feel like people are too dumb to understand this stuff. And so we're not going to really explain why we have all these fees. It's just that there's fees, right? I mean, it's just like people don't want to read the print before they click terms of service, like they agree. They don't want to read all that stuff. So if there's fees in there, it's their job to read it, and it's not our job to explain it to them. That's essentially what they were saying in this documentary, and it really made us angry. And so I trolled in the editing.
Well, not
That's what
only
I
that,
did.
though, it's the partnership between the company that you work for and these custodians. So it's not just the custodian that's siphoning these fees. The company that you work for, they're in cahoots. Like they are working together so that they can both benefit from this process.
Yeah. Okay. B.A.B. Chill says, what are the main risks of creating a self-directed IRA 401k?
Yep. So it's the word self-directed. Self-directed means control. Self-directed means you have ownership. So what that also means is you have to play an active role in making sure your money's working for you. And we talk a lot about custodians and we just talked about eliminating that two-thirds, um, um, eliminating the loss of two-thirds of your account due to fees. Well, if with a self-directed 401k, we use what's called a passive custodian. So it's still an FDIC insured bank, just like all of the others. And just so we're clear, any custodian can be a passive custodian. But what does that mean? That means your 401k dollars are sitting in a checking account with a bank, and that dollar amount is not accruing any interest, but it's also not being impacted by any fees. So it's basically sitting there collecting dust until you decide where you want to self-direct it. It's sitting there collecting dust until you take action and put that money to work. So I think to me, one of the largest risks is you assuming that you're going to self-direct this dollar amount and it's going to magically grow. So not having a solid understanding of where you want your money to how you want to take action with those funds, I think is really key. And here's what I'll also say to that is I go back to this is not a this or that conversation. Quick scenario. Let's say you've got a certain dollar amount sitting in Fidelity, sitting in some mutual fund stocks and bonds. And again, as of right now, they're probably doing pretty good. So I am not saying liquidate that account, get you a self-directed 401k and put all of that money to work. I'm saying understand how both of these vehicles work and put both of these vehicles in a position to work best for you. Leverage banks and financial institutions the way banks and financial institutions have been leveraging you. So what does that mean? Maybe there's an opportunity to become a hard money lender for your family. You have now set the precedent to where no one in your family, none of your brothers, sisters, cousins are going to purchase another vehicle by financing through a bank. They're going to finance through your 401k. So you're only going to transfer the amount required to be able to take care of that action into that 401k. And then you're going to generate and build wealth off leveraging your family and putting your family in a position to where instead of them spending that interest with some custodian that doesn't care about them, we're actually working together to build our own wealth. And then as that income comes, or as that return on your investment comes back into your 401k, you know that money sitting in that 401k is not doing anything for you, but you don't have another opportunity that you can take care of. Maybe you then move those funds back into that mutual fund, stock, or bond, that you had it in over here, that at least it's doing well. There's fees associated with it. But what you're doing outside of it is allowing you to help generate more income or offset whatever that fee structure might be. Or you move those funds out of the mutual fund stocks and bonds and with Fidelity, and you move them into one of their qualified high yield savings accounts. What that means is they offer qualified savings accounts that will allow you to be able to invest in what you want. I'm sorry, allow you to not be impacted by the negative growth of the market. And it's actually sitting there growing like a high yield savings account that you would get from anywhere, but it's your qualified money's doing it. So that gives you a vehicle that you can move money back and forth to do so.
Okay. So next we have Mark. Mark says, question, isn't it true that when done correctly, you should need less money to live on at retirement versus when you're working and raising a family on top of buying a home?
I agree with that I agree with that, I think on the surface, but I think that's another one of those tools that are used that we've been conditioned behind, because it reminds me of that statement of, hey, you'll be in a lower tax bracket. So don't worry about the fact that you deferred your taxes inside this product, because since you'll be in a lower tax
Yeah.
bracket when you retire, you'll need less money.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I'm focused on abundance. And I'm focused on abundance, not just for me, but I'm focused on abundance for everyone around me.
That's
And so
right.
if we're focused on abundance, I do not expect to have less when I get older. I expect to be in a position to be able to take care of more, whether that's put people in a better position to be able to accomplish more or be able to take care of more of the people that I love, right?
Right.
So-
And have better options. That's really what it comes down to. When you are young and you have your health and you have things that you can do, as you get older, those options start to dwindle, right? And get far more expensive. So if we are looking for what they think is good enough for us, then yeah, we'll follow their plan, because it's probably not going to be enough regardless, right? Like Social Security is going away. We're not going to get political on here, but if you haven't paid attention to what's happening with Project 25 and some of these other legislative propositions that are going on, what it all leads to is you need to have control. You need to have control of the options that will be available to you and the options that you can afford. None of us can afford to waste time at this point anyway, because we don't know what market conditions are going to do. We don't know what real estate markets are going to do. We have no idea. We don't have a crystal ball, but we can say that if we are dependent, right, and not independent, if we are fragile and not financially stable, these things make quite a difference. This is what I will say, Mark. A lot of people who get to this point, they think, well, I have my home paid off, so then that will reduce my living expenses. I will have no debt, so that will reduce my living expenses. But then if they haven't focused on the income and where that's coming from and making sure that they have far more than enough for their needs, you can be debt-free and broke at the same time. And that's not the question that you were asking, but I'm throwing that in there because a lot of people do focus on trying to reduce their living expenses so that in their retirement years, they will just have food and basic needs or whatever. But that's not the case. They end up running out of money because they cannot control how much those basic needs and those services cost. So when we start planning and when we get there, two completely different numbers. Like, how much are eggs going to be in 2050? Like,
Well, it's the video of the 70-year-old delivering pizza, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's hey, my home's paid off. I did everything I was supposed to do.
Right.
I'm living well below my needs, but I still don't have enough to be able to make ends meet. So I had to go back to work.
Yeah. And doing the best that she could do. How to Invest for Yourself says, what do you look for and what questions would you ask to a lawyer, air quote unquote, to help set up or maintain a family trust? We've actually been vetting people, so that's great that you asked this question because we know that people need to get this structure in place. This is not would be nice to have. This is a non-negotiable. Everybody needs to have this structure so that if you are working hard to build wealth and to create assets that have a value that can be passed down, that they don't get caught up in probate. Did you know that no different than like tax liens or fire homes, right? Houses that have been on fire properties, probate has become another asset class for investors. Don't let that be you and your family. So what questions would you ask to a lawyer? We're still vetting people. So what would you say?
Yeah, and I think it depends. Depends on your state, depends on your assets, depends on your family structure, depends on what you want the next 500 years to look like. I've got clients who don't have any kids, so they're really more focused on their charity. I've got clients who've got many kids, and so they're focused on what the next 500 years would look like. So they want to make sure that there's a clause in their trust that their kids have to get a prenup. Like, I mean, there's so much. There's so much. I think the key piece, though, is getting a reputable, I'll call it trust lawyer, because they are not all the same. And the state that you're in is like a lawyer in Arizona, as it relates to trust, won't necessarily be able to practice or be able to support you in Texas. So it's really specific to your state as well. And I think that's the whole point of us kind of going down this path as well, is for so that we can be able to vet and understand what that criteria needs to look like. But I think it varies, man. It is such an exhaustive list. I think we could do a whole live around what those questions should be.
Whole month, actually, because the majority of them, when we've been interviewing, different firms, they just want to know, well, how do you want it set up? And then we'll set it up that way for you. We really only ran into one, and hit us up if you're out there and you have a service, for this, like an offer for our community. We wanted to make sure that we vetted somebody who, no matter who went to them, they were going to have the same experience, and they weren't going to, we knew that this is like the general package of services and expectations for anybody else who was if we were gonna talk about them, right? One of those is while you're there, who do you talk to? What is the process for making changes? Rose is asking revocable or irrevocable trust. That's important.
Absolutely.
Because if you need to make changes, you need to be able to make those changes and understand what that process is, right? One you can't, the other one you can.
Right.
The other part, and how much does all of that cost, right? Is that something that you can just send an email? What does that process look like? The other part, though, that I feel like is even more important, us watching other people go through this process. We have not had to go through this process yet ourselves, where you are going through it with a parent or a child or whatever it is, but you have to go through this process of dealing with all the stuff. And then now you have to figure out, who do I even talk to? I think she had a trust, right? I think they had a will. I think they had accounts somewhere. Who's going to help them through that? What I would hope is that our kids are educated in the event that anything were to happen to us, that we would have had the time to have educated them. But let's say that day is tomorrow. Let's say the day is tomorrow. Who is it that they're going to know? Where are the instructions that they know that if final destination happens tomorrow, where do you go? What are your next steps? And that's the part that I'm really most sincerely looking for. It is who is going to hold their hand, because we have no idea how they're going to deal with that grief. We could have gone through these steps a million times to the point where we know that they have them memorized. And how we've seen people deal with grief is some of the strongest people cannot process full sentences for a moment. Like, they're messed up, right? They're processing their grief. They're not trying to do paperwork. They are not trying to remember stuff right now. That should not be the job at this moment. What service is provided in this package that will say when and if something happens, you will have a silver platter for them that says, this is how I'm here to help you, and I'm here to support you and make sure that all of these things get taken care of. That to me means a lot, to make sure that from our end of things that we're putting those things in place so that it's not so much of a burden and stress on them, right? That's important to me anyway. We've just seen it happen so many different ways, and that it seems like at least you got the trust, or at least you made the will, or at least you bought stuff and now it can be passed down. But then when you realize all of the drama around all that stuff, the people who are receiving it sometimes go like, if I would have known it would have required all of this, I wouldn't have wanted it, right? Because it doesn't feel like an heirloom at that point. It doesn't feel like wealth transfer. It feels like a burden sometimes.
Well, and I think you can absolutely say that with IRAs. Like
Yeah.
there are hey, at least I got the IRA, which means this is going to be my vehicle that I'm going to use to transfer wealth, or transfer wealth down to my heirs. Only not realizing the minute you transfer that IRA, there's a burden that they're receiving that they were not expecting, that they were not prepared for. So no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and if you were taking distributions, you're forcing them to now take distributions, which forces them into maybe a different tax bracket, which now changes everything. So everything that you thought they were going to benefit, they could actually be losing. And if you don't set that up properly, or have somebody to help you set this up properly, and now your IRA is up underneath the trust, if you assigned a beneficiary and you didn't update it, and so now it doesn't include these other people that came into the family or whatnot, or left the family, right? Because you didn't have the ability to make those changes, or you didn't think it was important because this one person was going to decide who got and who didn't get, right? And it doesn't work like that. And that's where a lot of people end up like, I wish she would never have given this to me at all, because it was just so much hassle. And that's the last thing we want to do with our loved ones, right? Our family, we don't want to put them through stress. So what questions do you ask? That's where all this was. Short story, extremely long. You got to know how you want yours structured, because if you're waiting for somebody else to tell you how to structure it, I just don't even think that exists necessarily. Short story, extremely long.
No, I remember, I think I was responding to a question, and I remember arms waving in my peripheral. I think it was saying, hey, would you please wrap it up?
Wrap it up. Yeah, that was me going,
that
wrap it
that was you?
up.
Wrap it up.
Yeah. Do you want to say wrap it up for me?
No,
You
no,
wanna-
I'm just,
you want a safe word?
pot calls kettles. That's all.
All right, safe word. All right. We're just gonna. All right. Tabitha says, aren't they charging yet more fees when you lower or change your diversity? Aren't they charging yet more fees when you lower or change your diversity?
Yeah, I think, depending on where your money is located, what the custodian is, there are custodians out there that charge for every action you take. So if I'm moving from one mutual fund, stock, or bond to another, there is a cost associated with that. If from the perspective of most brokers who do mutual fund, stocks, and bonds. So I think the truth about all of it is, I don't care what you do with your money, someone's going to charge you something, right? I mean, there's a cost to doing business in most cases. The piece for me isn't these banks are bad for even doing that. The piece for me is understanding what that cost is and being able to have control over your funds so you can mitigate that cost. Like, maybe you can't eliminate the fact that your custodian is charging you fees, but I can at least reduce the amount of that impact. And I know I can put my money elsewhere so that they can do better for me. So, and again, I don't view banks as bad. My objective is to become them. My objective is to kind of hopefully help you guys understand how to become them. So
we have our people in this chat. We love you all. Every single one who comes and tunes in. You guys are so much fun. Bonita says, look at your neighbor, turn to your neighbor and tell him thieves are taking all your money with the fees. Okay. And take some home. Take some home with you. All right. We've got some more. I can't even read Peaky's comments right now. He's in here too, saying stuff, and I'm gonna just be in here all night laughing, cackling. All right, Mark says, what are your thoughts about a family foundation? I think
Yeah.
you kind of touched on this a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan because it's that whole, I think, the whole Rockefeller discussion. Like, it all starts with properly structured cash value life insurance policies and self-directing your employer or previous employer accounts to be able to invest in non-traditional investments, and it all kind of rolling into some charitable remainder trust or foundation, or like all of that stuff is right. Now, I think a question for us, like, do we have one? No, we don't. I think, but that is absolutely a part of the goals around structure to make sure that generations beyond us are able to flourish. So, big fan.
Okay. And there's okay, so I think that's the questions. Unless we missed any, let us know. But let's give away a boat. That's what I think. We should give away a boat. Frankie, by the way, I don't think Frankie knows. I don't think she's been here for these new boats. Frankie, girl, we got new boats. We've got this vision board starter kit because it was really... Let's put the comments away. We've got this vision board starter kit. This is probably why people think we drink on here, right? This is really us sober.
Because you literally came out of that song with, I got the sexiest box of...
We've got the sexiest box. Let me do... Aw, yeah. Vision board starter kit. And the boat is inside of this kit, okay? The boat with the little oars. The reason we're going to tell you in just a second why we give the boat away for those who are new here. We've got all these little reminders of the things that we talk about here on our channel to keep you focused, keep it sharp, keep it fresh, keep it top of mind. That's really the important part. We've also got your number, your freedom number, how to find your freedom number. You guys can see that. Don't act like you can't, okay? A reminder, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So stuff that's, stuff that feels like home, right here, your home on this channel. And I also put in, where are they at? I also put in some little glue dots so you can put them up. You have no excuses now.
Play the
song.
Play it.
You can...
Got glue dots.
That's not... You can put up these glue dots. You have no excuses now. Make it. You don't even have to make it look good. Donnell, you want to show them a little sample of your board?
It's not close.
It's not close. But you know what? It's not far from looking terrible either. And that's okay because it worked. That's the important part. I was focused on it looking good. We didn't get any of my things done. It doesn't matter how it looks. The point is that you start making all of those little decisions to help you get the win. We got to know where we're going. We talk about the goal here all the time, but we know what's most important is that you believe you can achieve the goal and that you commit. And when you commit at this level, like this team did, and we're going to play this video in just a second, when you commit at this level, all of the decisions, every single day, you cannot forget. You can't forget where it is you're going. And so therefore, it's inevitable. It becomes non-negotiable that you will reach your goal. And that is what we hope for you. Your goal has now become our goal. And that's what we hope for you. And this is how this team achieved their goal. Put hashtag boat in the chat. And then we're going to spin for the boat when we come back. In 1998, a British rowing team dreaming of the Olympic gold found themselves ranked 7th. Their focus had always been on the competition day, but they realized the keys to reaching their highest potential were hiding in the decisions that they'd make over those next 2 years.
Faced with two obvious choices, continue their current path and expect the same result, or give up, they discovered a third transformative option. They united under one guiding question: will it make the boat go faster? Every decision, every action was weighed against this mantra. If the answer was yes, they could or would have to do it.
If the answer was no, it was forbidden, non-negotiable. Prior to the competition, this team was doubted and ridiculed, but no one knew what they had been doing. And once they hit the water, they were nearly unrecognizable, achieved their pinnacle, and won the gold. So we ask you,
what is your goal? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
Will your story feel unrecognizable, even to you? Are you willing to light your beacon and stay focused? Stay committed. Is your story non-negotiable, or are you waiting to find out how you ranked? Your financial future is not a game. You are only competing with yourself and those in the boat with you, your family, and the many generations to come.
Will this make the boat go faster? A sounding alarm, a beacon of clarity amidst turbulent life decisions.
It's not just about speed, but direction, purpose, and an unwavering commitment. Every choice, every sacrifice aimed at the goal.
The first agreement this team made was to become fully self-directed, making their health their wealth, adopting a new perspective on their time and freedom, and the decisions they could fully control to reach their goal.
Will we make your boat go faster? That is our pledge to you. Our mission is to arm you with knowledge, strategies, and insights to ensure that not only you reach the goal, but you do so long before your race is over. Hey. Okay, it's working, so that's a good sign. All right, let's give it a spin. Who's getting the boat? And we want your feedback too. This whole new boat package, this mini starter vision board kit, starter kit, vibe. Cindy! Oh my gosh!
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. Okay, go to selfdirected.info/live and tell us where to send it. That's all you got to do. Okay, well, we always say we're just going to send one, but then we end up spinning again because we can. This would be like a workout song too, right? Couldn't you like get into it? Maybe we should end our stream with like some stretches or something. Oh, it's Scott. Scott won last time. All right, he won last time. So we're gonna pick somebody else who hasn't gotten one yet. Hopefully. How to invest. He hasn't gotten a kit yet. You know what to do. Go to the form and tell us where to send it so that we can send you guys your boats. And honestly, even if you haven't won this vision board kit, just let it be an addition to yours. If you have not put your goals down, if you haven't like declared it, right? Made a statement. This is where I'm going. It does not matter what anybody else has said about me, and I don't care what people say about you, right? What we believe is what we believe, and it doesn't matter what other people believe you're capable of. We know that we have achieved far more than what we could have ever put down on paper in the very beginning, but until we started declaring it, we weren't getting anywhere very fast. So we know the power in this, and we hope that we can influence our community to do the same. Yes?
Let's do it.
All right. So if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
We can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
that's right. So stay tuned.
Stay connected.
Stay focused.
Stay protected.
Did you mess up?
I did.
Okay. So stay tuned. So come back, okay? We're just going to make a new
Get
one.
over here.
I'm Angelique.
And I'm Donnell.
And we're the Stidhams, by the way, for those who didn't come.
Married all over these
That's
internet
right. We're
streets.
married all over these interwebs. And he doesn't call his female co-host sweetheart. It's not condescending for those who might be confused. And also, we don't drink on the stream. We're just naturally like this.
Goofy all day.
Just pure goofy. We really appreciate that you guys are spending your time here with us. We know that time is the most valuable asset that we have, and we're so, so grateful that you spend it here with us. We will be here Sunday and Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's important to note that part because from 6 p.m., it's all the standard times after that. Whatever one you're in, that's when we're going to be here Sundays and Wednesdays, and we hope you'll come back and hang out with us next Sunday. You have anything else?
Nope. I think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. In just a second, we're going to tell you how to get a ton of free resources, and we hope that you take advantage of those. Have a great night, and we'll see you back here on Sunday. Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get
Get self-directed.